Everyone. Can you put on your headphones and then nod at me with a knowing look the moment you know that they're working? Although these speakers look pretty good as me. Just a knowing look. Just that sort of stuff. That'd be great. Thanks very much. I'm Al Turner. I'm emceeing this particular discussion. Before I start, I just would like to welcome you all officially to Event Tech Live as well, and welcome to the main stage, which has been very, very kindly donated, looked after, sponsored, and all round made happen by our lovely friends over at Evolution Dome. It looks lovely, and it's a great place to have conversations like this. Is it working? All right. Is it really loud? Am I going to get your feedback? Right. I'll do this. So look, thanks for coming along. This is a discussion that we've had 5 times now. It started with the launch of the Event Sustainability Live, Event Sustainability Buyer's Guide. And it worked really, really well, and people were quite interested in what we all had to say. So we did it again, and then we did it again. And we thought it'd be quite a nice idea to do it again, but this time in Event Sustainability Live. So that's why it's called sort of like the return. So thanks for coming along. Obviously, we're kind of saying the right sort of things. But I guess what's really important and what's always worked well with this format is that we try and invite the audience in. Now, I know it's 10:05 in the morning, and you might just want to just sit back. You can do that. That's absolutely fine. You don't need to engage. But if you have something to say, please do. I'll be at various stages looking out to you to either a hand up, or by all means use Slido as well, and we'll keep an eye on that as well, because obviously there's lots of people up there. There's some people up here that have stuff to say, but everything that you have to say has relevance as well. And I guess what this session is all about is almost like a temperature check or a litmus test on where we are at the moment as an industry around sustainability. So I hope that's okay, and please do use that Slido format and lean in if you can as well, because it'll add a huge amount of value. I'm going to sit down now. I'm really excited and really pleased to be welcoming back some of our heroes from the series, previous sessions. But what I'll do is I'll let them introduce themselves very briefly, and then we'll start diving into the main chat. So why don't I pick on Cassidy first, which is going to be an oncoming theme of this discussion. Cassidy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Cassidy. I'm the Director of Events and Operations at Chorus. We're a live event and creative agency, also an ILA member and a carbon neutral agency as well. So we're well along on our journey.
Fantastic. Felicia.
I feel shamed by Cassidy. So my name's Felicia Asiedu. I am the Marketing Director for Europe at cvent. We run event technology for event planners and marketers, and we also are a venue and hotel finding platform for same audience. So we really work across the whole of the MICE space, and we help people to look at their data. So that's always helpful when you're looking at sustainability.
Hi, I'm Vic. I'm Venue Sales and Events Planner at BMA House. We are an award-winning sustainable venue in the heart of London.
Fantastic.
I feel shamed again.
No.
Let's put the odd one out. Okay, so let's dive into it, and let's hit it like we do with every single session that we've ever done in this one, which is basically, I'm going to start with Cass again. Why don't you give us an idea of where you think we are? So last time we all sat down, it was February 23. We're now middle to end of November. How far do you think we've moved? What's changed in the last few months or so?
I think the answer is we haven't moved very far, sadly. I think there's lots of good stuff going on. This event, as an example, has been launched. We are moving forward. There is a lot more out there. You can hear a lot more good news stories. But I think people are still struggling with bringing their clients on board, bringing their supply partners on board, having the time to deliver sustainably, and getting the right data and knowing what to do with that data as well.
Fantastic. Felicia, your top line thoughts on where we are since February 23?
Yeah, so I kind of feel very similarly. And as I was coming up to do this panel, I'm joking when I say I feel shamed, because I don't. Because between myself and our planning team, we internally are making good steps towards always thinking sustainable first. It's by design, so it's not the afterthought of, oh, that should have been sustainable. It's more like, what should we do as we're coming towards planning these events? And we do a lot of events each year. But actually the story for us isn't really about us, it's about our clients and how we're helping our clients to think about their data and think about their actions and decisions. And we have a team called cvent Consulting, and they work largely with big enterprise corps, pharma, finance. And I spoke with them yesterday because I was like, what has been done? What decisions are our clients making? And they said they're not. They're really scared to make decisions to decide to be with trace or with thrust carbon, or they don't really know what to do when it comes to really solidifying how to track their carbon footprint. But they're doing similar to us in that they're taking good actions. They're just not able to kind of then say, and that's the standard and that's how we report on that. So I think it's good because people are aware, but it's slow going in terms of like some real strong decisions.
I'm going to do a hands up in a second, but I want to hear what Vic's got to say first, because so far we're on underwhelmed. Go on, Vic.
Also underwhelmed.
Underwhelmed,
Yeah.
right.
I think same kind of thing. I mean, as the ladies were saying, there is still very much a conversation about it. There's very much a presence, especially within the industry, but I think a lot of it is coming from the suppliers. So kind of having conversations with other leaders, other suppliers, it's coming from our side, but it's actually getting the clients to invest in it. And I think there is, as you said, kind of like a fear from them to kind of take that step, spend that money. A lot of it is quite expensive, and to actually get on board with it. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is to kind of, like, some clients will come to us as a sustainable venue. That's what they're looking for. They want a sustainable event, but a lot of them just don't seem to really care still. So I think that is probably the biggest challenge, is to kind of get them on board as well.
Right, so that's a cracking start. I just want to gauge you guys as well, because I think it's really important that we judge ourselves as an industry in the right way. So I think at best that's a 3 out of 10, right? So I just want to work out who thinks that's about right by the raise of a hand. 3 out of 10. Oh, okay, I won't even bother with the next one. Does anyone think it's better or worse? How about better? Anyone thinks that we're being a bit... Okay, fair enough. Anyone think that actually 3 is generous? Right, okay. No, that's really, really interesting. And I guess, Cass, I wouldn't mind your viewers, because I think is that against what should have done? We all woke up in February and went, it's going to be a fantastic year for sustainability. We'll fly. All these wonderful people are doing all wonderful things, but now I'm in November and I'm not really seeing anything. So it's against what you thought it was going to be, or do you just feel like we should have done better regardless?
Well, it's been a fantastic year for events for us, but probably 4 of our biggest events that we've delivered this year have been delivered in 4 weeks or under. So there's definitely the issue of planning time and being able to make the right choices when you've got to get it done in that amount of time. And some of them have been a pretty heavy lift in terms of what we've been trying to achieve. And that doesn't mean that we haven't asked the right questions and gone to our client and filled out the trace and done the report afterwards. It's just the hindsight reporting of we should have done this, we should have done that, is really frustrating, because we could have done it had we had the right amount of time to deliver it. So I think the learnings for us sometimes are a little bit repetitive in our case studies, and it's frustrating for the team, because we're like, well, why did we rush that print run and just go to the nearest printer or whoever could do it the cheapest? Like, it's not where we want to be, and it's not what we want to be delivering for our clients either.
And I've personally seen some really amazing case studies come out of Chorus. There are some really lovely stories to tell. Do you think as an industry we perhaps project those out there and they sort of belie a longer tail of perhaps more frustrating events that we're perhaps not talking about?
Good question. I think we're all inclined to talk about our best case studies and put our best foot forward. I mean, I think we'd be fools if we were going to put bad case studies out there and on our website. Happy to talk in this environment with it, but to external clients, I'm not sure. I think we take those learnings to client meetings and say, we've done this before, we've been through it. Please listen. Another client in your sector has done exactly the same and it was a mistake for them, so we think it would be a mistake for you. Let's do it properly this time. So I think having all of that anecdotal, both data and actual real world examples is hugely important for the whole team. And we've started doing like a bi-monthly or monthly sort of sustainability case study catch up on our actual projects to talk to the team about what we've learned in those projects. So they've got it at the tip of their tongues when they go and meet clients and when they go and meet supply partners to say, we did this last time, we don't want to do it again, how can we work with you to make it better? So I think I'm not going to put bad case studies on my website, just saying.
Well done.
Fair enough.
But happy to share. I think still, and I brought this up, I think, in Feb about sharing learnings between, cross-venue, cross-agency, cross-supply partner, and being honest and transparent about it and saying, what can we learn together and make it better for next time?
I think there's this interesting friction, Felicia, around greenwashing or self-cancelling or green shaming and things like that. I guess from a marketing point of view, how you see that. But equally, is the industry either lying to itself or is it being responsible? Do you think we're covering stuff up? I'd be interested to see what you think. Or are we just, like Cass said, let's put our best feet forward?
I do think it's hard because, I joked at the beginning saying, I feel shamed. I actually don't. I know that when we, come together to put a stand together, Penny, my planner, is sat in front and I'm like, can we just use the same stuff we used last time? Because I really don't, I'm not really going to start building a new kind of like, what's the stand design this time? I don't really care. It's got to look, it says what it says, so let's just use the same stand. And if we're going to use the same stand, let's go back to the same supplier, get the same wood out of the shed, brush it off, and it's going to be okay. So I think those are good choices that we're making to do that, and I do see that the industry wants to make those choices, so we should share that. I'm not saying it so that I can toot my own horn or greenwash everything else that we're doing as a company, but I'm saying it because that's something that, did you think about doing that? Oh yeah, I did. Oh good. Is that a good standard? Yeah. So coming together helps us to know that that's actually a good thing to do. But I think, I was chatting to one of my colleagues the other day, and she said, in the scheme of things, Amazon, for example, run events, I'm sure, right? And when they're looking at their sustainable practices, they've got a lot to think about in the scope 1. So when they start thinking about their events, how much are they really still thinking about? They have to, it's such a wide range of things they have to think about that are their event planners then going to feel like, oh my gosh, we need to hide ourselves because our stand is, green as it can be, but we're shipping all this stuff all over the world. They can't really help that. So all they can do is talk about the things that they are doing and things that are good, so that the rest of us can learn something and hopefully make a difference in our organisations as well.
I think that's a fair enough shout. And Vic, I guess we won't need to move very far from this stage or out there to see great work being done by venues in general, right? And I think if there was maybe a positive aspect, I think there's some venues that have really moved a long way. I'd be interested in your view on that, is because I feel like that it's there. It's there for the clients to use or the events to use. Now, is your perhaps negativity about the fact that they're not using it, like Cass said, whether it's about time, whether it's about budget, what sort of barriers are there to entry on the sort of things that you're doing at the moment?
You mean from our side or from the client side?
Probably more your clients, because my understanding is BMA are continually to push it, so yeah. It's there, right?
It is, yeah, for sure. I think budget is a big thing, and also lack of knowledge. So I think there are certain steps that clients can take that are easy and cost effective. For example, the first step is choosing a sustainable venue, but then we'll do everything we can from our side, but it's them kind of putting practices in place that contribute to that further. So thinking about kind of how their guests are getting to the venue, how their the materials that they're using whilst they're during the event and things like that. I mean, we have certain rules in place, but we're not going to kind of stop them from doing things that they want to do. So I think it's sharing knowledge and kind of from our side saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Maybe even just little things that we are doing, like we've got a clean air walking route from King's Cross to the venue. Trying to like send that out ahead of time. We've got like a cycling guide. We encourage people to cycle to the venue. So even if they are getting into London from further afield, when they're in London, they can take those steps from their side that are free and easy to then kind of take it that one step further. When you're talking about kind of the bigger scale things that are obviously a lot more expensive, I think that's where it gets challenging and where people don't want to maybe prioritise. Like you were saying, like a lot of people I think would maybe try and prioritise how something looks or how something presents itself rather than kind of prioritising on what maybe is more important.
So let's up the ante here a little bit. My view is as well is I remember there was a question in one of our early ones which was about some of these people just aren't moving fast enough and we need to shame them. Some of these people just are still at a very early point in their evolution, or it's a tick box exercise. There comes a point where we need to leave those people behind and not help them anymore. And I think when we were in February, we kind of decided that wasn't yet. And I just want to work out where you guys are. Does there come to a point where you don't want to work with events if they're not taking this seriously enough? Does it come to a point where it goes contractual? Does it come to a point where we basically just need to let people go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have quite strict policies in place at the venue in terms of suppliers. So when we're putting together our suppliers list, all our suppliers, and that includes caterers, furniture hires, florists, they all have to align with our sustainability practices. So anybody that approaches us and wants to be a supplier, they have to go through a vetting process to make sure that their ethos, their sustainability practices are A, in place at all, and B, kind of align with ours. So anybody that doesn't meet that criteria, we won't work with them. We don't necessarily try and shame them for it, but we won't work with them, and it's the same with clients. Like, it's the same vetting process. If they don't kind of match up with our ethos, we won't host their event.
We have the same. So we have a sustainable procurement policy that I've worked on with our director of technical production, and there's a minimum, right? Like Vic was saying, most people are doing it, at least some of it, and I think what that policy does and those conversations do are highlight where our supply partners can improve, especially if they want to work with some of the the agencies and the brands that we work with, because it is coming from our clients a bit more. I think I've sat here before and said it's not coming from our clients at all. It is starting to drip through, and there is just this level of expectation. And you talk about leaving people behind. I think they'll just get left behind. I don't think it will be a purposeful, we're not using you. It will just, everyone who is exceeding in this realm will just take over.
And we've talked about this, and I think I know the answer, but what about the other way? I know there's some event agencies out there that just says we won't work in an unsustainable way. We will turn down business from big corporates, big clients, big events if we have to do that. Nice thing to say, but what do you reckon about that?
I mean, I think if you're in a position to be able to do that, then great. That's a big ask, isn't it? And I think you could pick holes in every single one of our projects as well. Like by no means are our projects perfect. And I think what we've always encouraged is that people are doing their best with the budget and the time frame and the brief and the creative vision that they're given. There's always going to be things that could have been improved on, and that's how we learn. But sometimes we make that decision for the right reason. So it might not be the most sustainable thing we could have done, but it met the creative vision and the client got what they needed from it.
Fantastic. Felicia, any comments on that, leaving people behind, calling bullshit, all those sort of stuff? What's your view? I'm going to, while I go out and look at Slido, right?
Sure thing.
Cover me.
So to give the other side, to give you the other side of that, I guess leaving suppliers behind, I agree with you that it would be a natural thing. Like if someone says, no, I can't do that. So if we go out and we say, we would like something done like this and we would like it to be sustainable, they say, I can't do that. Then we'd say, oh, okay, let's find someone else. And so that's just how it will work out. But as a supplier ourselves, it's an interesting one because I don't know that enough people are driving us on our side to be as sustainable as we possibly can be. So therefore, they're holding us to a particular standard. And the sad thing is, what is the standard? So what is the standard for us against one of our competitors out here? I don't think anyone actually knows. So they're going to come and they're going to ask us a bunch of questions that they think are fine because they're working to their own standards. And if we're able to answer those sufficiently, they'll work with us, and that will be the end of that. So I think it's a little bit wishy-washy at the moment just because there isn't a clear set of guidance and there isn't a clear standard to achieve. So, I think it's I'm not really giving you a straightforward answer, but I think what I'm saying is I don't see enough suppliers getting left behind because what on earth are they being held to?
No, I like that. I just want to thanks for your questions on Slido, and please do keep them coming in because I think it isolates some of the areas that we want to go in there. There's a question on Cassidy for you, Cassidy, that kind of carries on that, which is in addition to how their event is organised, do you have conversations with your clients about sustainable outcomes, positive impacts of their events? So maybe go into a bit more detail in terms of what the outcome needs to be when you're having those early conversations.
Yeah, totally. We in our sustainability is driven through everything. So it's part of our agenda templates, it's part of our scope of work templates. So at the beginning, when we're scoping a project, we would set those sustainability objectives. If the client doesn't have any, we set them for them and say we would like this to at least a carbon neutral event, and we will be offsetting on your behalf to this organisation that we work with, Equilibrium. If there's one that they want to use, absolutely fine. But that's our standard. And then we drive that through every agenda that we talk to them about. And to be honest, we've battled the conversation a lot, but we're getting somewhere. And actually recently one of our clients announced that we're going to be published in their annual report for pushing their events to a more sustainable outcome, which is incredible. It's taken a lot of hard work. And we continue to do reports whether clients ask for it or not. And we also, we've been asked this a few times by our recruiters and our advisors, is you don't have any sustainable roles in your business. Like no one has a title of sustainability manager, and my response is always that's because it's in everybody's job descriptions and everybody is responsible for it, because if you give it to one person and they're too busy to be on all the projects we've got, then what happens to that project? And we do the sustainability and events training done by Isla every year to refresh us and train our new staff on it. So it's really important that we keep that conversation throughout everything we do.
That's great.
I think that answers the question.
No, it does, and I'll be interested in your view on that, Vic, as well. I guess, is there anything that you can, an event comes in, a client comes in, you can turn around and say, you get this. This is what you're going to get regardless. It's a non-negotiable. You will get a sustainable event to this point. And what sort of conversations does that look like and feel like with you and the client?
We're maybe not quite as strict in terms of us kind of putting specific rules in place for the client, but we do have kind of standard practices. For example, we have reworked our menus to be a lot more sustainable, so all of our food, for example, comes from local suppliers, and we've taken beef off the menu and some of the other kind of more the higher carbon meats and fish. If the client specifically wants beef, they can request it, and we won't turn around to them and say absolutely not, but there are things that we've put in place like that mean that kind of as standard they are already kind of working at a slightly more sustainable level. So
No, I'm getting a sense of this. Yeah. There's a question for you, Felicia. Are you able to provide your clients with the carbon footprint for using your products?
So I'm not, but I know that our team in the US does, yes, cvent does, and that's because, we use AWS, and we know that AWS has a very strict way of calculating the use on their cloud platform, and that's how a lot of our technology runs. It runs in the cloud, so that's an easier calculation for much of the technology that's used with cvent, and so our team is able to provide that. The place where it gets more challenging is that events don't just live in tech world. They obviously go into badge printing and lanyards. So the on-site solutions, yes, again, there is a team that's looked at the different types of badge choices that people make and then quantities, and you can do a rough calculation. It changes if you use the types of badges that you can then put back in, and we take them back in to recycle. So if we are on site with people, we've got boxes. We literally found boxes in the office the other day. It says for recycling. So we know that those badges can go back to make concrete. So that calculation has not been done. We don't know that if the badges come back, what impact that has. We probably should talk to the recycler and then say, well, then how does that change the carbon output because it's been reused or recycled? But yeah, we can pretty much do most in the tech.
Okay. There's a couple of questions on there that I want to hit in just a sec, but before we finish, we should definitely do budget and scope 3, everybody, right? So I was quite proud because I think we're one of the only panels that actually turned around and said budget is an issue around sustainability. Every single one that I've been on sort of said, oh no, it's not, it saves you money and all this sort of stuff. And I must say I'm still very much undecided. Cassidy, what's your view, right? So does sustainability cost, is that cost going down, up? What sort of challenges are you facing on a daily basis to try and get events off the ground and make them sustainable?
Discuss. I think there's a slight disagreement with your sustainability costs, because if you're reducing, and this is a point that Isla have made a lot, if you're going from the outset of you're reducing, then actually costs should be driven down as a whole. I'm not saying that buying a product in a sustainable manner is not more expensive than not, but if you are reducing overall, the cost to the client overall should go down. What was the next question?
Yeah, no, I was good, but sometimes, the inclusion of sustainability services, the inclusion of a sustainability manager.
Yeah, we don't charge for that, so
sometimes
it's hard for me to say.
Yeah, and sometimes do you any costings that come and have to be passed on to the client as
the
well?
The offsetting costs
are
actually surprisingly low, probably too low. Every time we do a calculation of X amount of tons of carbon and what that monetary value is, we always raise our eyebrows and go, really? It's only that? Okay. Like sometimes it's not even the cost of one hotel room, and you think, well, why wouldn't we do it then? Yeah.
How about set against the fact that there's a question about cost of living crisis, the cost of living, the cost of putting on events as well. Do you see that as a sustainability argument, or is that just base cost? It's just a question, no?
That's just base cost. The cost of things is going up. So I think, like what you're saying, the proportion of what you're having to spend on, okay, let's call it sustainable swag. You were going to buy swag. Swag's gone up. Buy some sustainable swag, it goes up 20p more.
Buy less swag.
Done. Yeah, exactly. Which so these types of things, I think it's a weak argument, and I actually think that the cost, when I look at both our internal organisation and the organisations that we're trying to sort of coach into, make better decisions, the cost actually comes into time. I don't think it's a monetary issue. I think it's the effort and the time and the persuasion and the teams you'll have to train and all of that. I think that's actually the cost that most of the big, large orgs that we're talking to, they can't even begin to think about. They're like, I can't put the time into this.
I agree with that. And because we're relatively small, medium-sized agency, and we started this journey just in COVID, so we had a lot of time on our hands then. It's been a lot easier for us than some of the larger agencies to do this, and we appreciate that. But if you've got to start with something, and you've just got to know what your baseline is of what you're going to deliver by when, and just have a really clear plan. It doesn't have to be this juggernaut of, where the hell do we start? Interesting
in your view as well, Vic, in terms of, do you pick up any extra cost by what you're doing? Does that have to be passed along? You mentioned it might be a barrier to some of the, your success, or that 3 out of 10 we gave at the beginning of it?
Yeah, I think with sustainability, obviously, it is very much present, and it is something that so many people are considering and working on, but new things are coming out all the time, new technologies, new research, new information, and I think when the things like that are newer and not quite as developed maybe, and still kind of in the first stages, that's when they cost more. So as things get more like carbon measuring, for example, a couple of years ago, that was a really new thing, very, very expensive, only a few people were doing it, but now it's everywhere. So many companies are doing it, there's so many suppliers offering to do that, so the cost goes down. And I think it's that kind of element, like if you're trying to be at the forefront of sustainability and doing everything you can, kind of staying right at the top, that's when things might cost a little bit more, because it's still new, it's still fresh, it's still a little bit underdeveloped and a bit more niche, I guess. So
yeah. And what you just said is where, if I go back to what I said about the fear earlier on, the fact that there are so many carbon calculators out there sounds great, and it is cheaper now, but I'm trying not to name names. It makes it really complex for some very large organizations to figure out. And you would think these particular organizations, you'd be like, okay, well, they must be doing something because they're large and they're very well known, and they've got themselves together. But it makes them kind of go, all right, well, so who's right and who's wrong? Because they're all different. And it would be really good if all the carbon calculators said the same thing and had the same output. But I think, we'd love to say it's directional. You shouldn't be that fearful. It's directionally going to give you enough. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. It's going to give you enough to say, well, that's our now benchmark. Let's get our own number down. You don't need to compare all of them.
I like it. I just want to make sure, I just want to check in with you guys. Has anyone else got any sort of questions in and around budget or anything like that? I'm just want to make sure we spike that sort of question quite well. By all means, whack it up on Slido. I'll run over, but okay, we might come back to that one. Want to talk about Scope 3, which I think will be a conversation in and around this this event quite a lot. Cass, I'll, as usual, pick on you first. I just want your opening musings on Scope 3 and where you see it as an agency.
You should explain what that is.
Well, all the stuff that we can't directly control, still our worst performing category. But definitely with producing a sustainable procurement guide, we've moved that conversation forward with using the tools that are around us, like the B Corp website, like looking out for the ISO accreditations that are out there for the people that we want to work with. It's a minefield.
There's an argument, if everyone else looks after the Scope 1 and 2, you shouldn't have to talk about the Scope 3. But I'd be interested in whether you have any sort of power around, airlines or things like that, or you just sit there and go, look, we're Chorus, we're trying to put an event on at the moment.
The airlines are responsible for the airlines. I'd really get wound up by the fact that people think we're going to be able to sort out what fuel the airlines use. Like, as an industry, it's not in our scope. But we can affect how, we can look at how we travel, and we can make the right decisions around it. However, if we need to go to Australia, we're going to have to fly there.
What? I can't swim?
Go on, Felicia. You've got some pent up thoughts on this one.
I don't, but I do. It's just because we really can't solve for everything. And we're the events industry, and we think we're very important because we are here and we're in this room, and we are important people. But in the scope of organizations and the world, unfortunately, they haven't got us around the boardroom table all the time. Do you know what I mean? So that's back to my Amazon example. There are many, many, many things that are happening outside of events that need to be tackled before we can kind of fix it. And so, airline fuel, no, I can't. But what we did do, for example, is such a small thing, but for example, asking people where are they traveling in from in our reg, we didn't need to ask that question, but we were intrigued. It will help us to then track, where they're coming from, and maybe it might help someone to think, oh, I could maybe take a train and not drive, or so we can only impact what we can impact. We can't really get into the depths of all the suppliers and what they're doing. It's just not.
Is there not a small argument about purchasing power here, or am I pushing this too harsh?
I mean, how much are we all working together anyway? Do you see what I mean? And like I said about the standards, the standards, we don't know them because no one's coming together. I have heard, actually, through the grapevine, and this is, who knows if this is true or not, so we'll see, but we heard it from some large hoteliers that some very large hotels are coming together to create hotel standards in this world. And I'm talking very, very big names. And we had them around the table last week and they said, yep, we're all part of it. We don't know what it's called. But that kind of thing, that power is good. And that's where that needs to live, I think. If they all come together and say, this is the standard of rooming, of food, of sourcing and all of that, that's great. Because then we can buy into that. I can't decide what the Hilton's going to do tomorrow.
Fair enough. Vic, I mean, my thing on Scope 3, I think it's been best sort of maybe demonstrated through work with food. But are you seeing any other, are you guys engaging in other conversations around Scope 3 that's worth sharing, or is it pretty much about food sourcing?
Food sourcing is a big one, yeah, because I think food waste, food sourcing, a lot of that then kind of obviously has impacts further afield. So I think it's very much we can only do what we can do, and as you were saying, like, we can't control what the other larger corporations are doing and how we impact that. But I think if we are getting together, we're sharing knowledge, we're doing research, and we're doing everything that we can, it does filter out, and kind of it's a bit of a chain reaction, I think, isn't it? And yeah, there's certain things you can't control, but you can do what you can.
I feel sad to say it, but oh my gosh, let me just tell everyone here, you are great. This industry is fantastic, because I'm about to say what I was going to say again. But we've spoken about things like government legislations and things like that, because that's where the power really lies, with some regulatory body or someone making a difference and saying, this is it, this is what you have to live up to. Now everyone go and do it so we can all feed into it. But they didn't even recognize us as an industry when the pandemic was happening. So I don't know that they're looking back and saying, right, how are you doing with sustainability? It's such a shame. And that's why I feel like bodies like ILO are great, because at least they're trying to gather a group of people together to kind of set a standard. But then there's so many of ILOs. So now
I think there's a great podcast called Saving Tomorrow's Planet. And the host of that was saying that it's going to be too late for government legislation, and it is all the companies in this room that are going to drive it and set those standards, and then legislation will change because of what they've found the data for and benchmarked and put out there. So everyone who's doing an amazing job needs to keep doing it, and yeah.
I love that.
We've only got a few minutes left, so I was going to do predictions for 24 and positive, negative, and I'm going to go across and then I'm going to go out, all right? Not on the prediction stuff because we haven't got that long. But I'd be interested in, right, so 2024, what's it going to bring? Bearing in mind where we started, 2024, what do you think you're going to be seeing? What emerging trends?
I'd love some more lead time. But I think we'll see more pressure from our clients coming down, because it is starting, and especially because we do a lot of B2C work, it's an expectation of consumers to see what these brands are doing in terms of sustainability, so it has to be delivered in the events and the experiences that we do.
Yeah. Felicia?
I think we'll start to see more of the minimum becoming the baseline. It's like I said, lots of people are doing lots of good things. They're making really good choices, and I think that those they're becoming no longer choices. They're like, that's just what we do. That's just how we live. I remember even last year, coming back this year, everyone was like, Felicia, we need business cards, and I was like, no, you don't. I just refuse to give you business cards. So now no one even asks. They don't even think about it, and I think that will permeate a little bit more next year, where we're not even asking, we're not having the conversation. It's just like, we don't do that. Of course we don't do that. It's just a normal thing.
It's like bottled water, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of gone.
Mad.
Yeah, it's mad, and it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so glad.
And then from a supplier side, we're getting good at giving like tool tips. So I want to see more of that. We're doing it with accessibility, where we're giving people, as they're building websites, we're giving them little tips of like, did you know that's not an accessible color to put on that background? So I would like to see cvent, I think we are starting to do this, to give more of those tool tips as you're building your reg. Have you included something about this? So that it's going to help you measure. It's not hard for us to do.
Very good, very good. And lastly, Vic.
Yeah, I think sharing of knowledge and collaborating, I think, is a big one. I've seen that kind of from the start of this year to now. A lot more collaboration within the industry and people working together, sharing knowledge, and I think hopefully that's only going to continue into next year, and everybody's going to kind of come together a little bit more, and we can all help each other.
All right. Well, here's the base test then. Positive, negative. Go on, one word. No, you can say neutral as well if you want to, but go on, Cass. Positive, negative, neutral. 2024 outlook around sustainability in the events industry. Positive, negative.
I think it can only be positive. We don't have a choice.
Thank God for that. Go on, Felicia.
Yeah, positive, definitely.
Go on.
Positive.
There you go. So we're going to beat 3 out of 10. Well done,
Yeah, let's do
everyone.
that.
That's how about you guys? Right, come on. Positive. Oh, the events industry will never be beat, will it? It will never be beat. Negative. Someone in production, I would assume. Neutral. Well done, everyone. Hey, look, I just want to say thank you to these guys for once again leading a conversation. I think it's been really, really interesting. I hope you guys got loads out of it. We'll be back in February for more thoughts. And if you wouldn't mind, just giving them a small ripple of applause as you enjoy the rest of this fine event.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm the stage host here, so I'm not going anywhere. I live here today.